arranged marriage was not this thing of taking a 15-year-old girl and marrying her off to a 30-year-old man.
Gotcha.
No, not at all. An arranged marriage would be between two families, and then they would sit down and they would say, look, our families would do well together. We have a daughter, we have a son. How do you feel about this?
How are you doing, Sia?
I'm all right yourself.
Good, I'm well. All right, so let's start with a little bit of context, right? The significance of marriage in African culture, where it kind of began, and how it's shifted over time.
Okay. So where it began was, apart from bringing two individuals together, it's about bringing two families together.
Right.
Right? Uniting our resources, but also making sure that should anything happen to one party or the other, that there'll be someone else to look after them. Right? Because marriage, kahle kahle, is a covenant.
Yes.
It's ensuring, it's a blood covenant,
Yes.
actually. It's ensuring that should anything happen to myself, then Globals will always be looked after. Right? And vice versa. Okay, that's where it comes from. The spiritual significance of marriage, right, is to not only unite two people together, but it is ensuring that ancestral gifts in terms of ubinyanga receive the resources that my family doesn't have innately, but your family does. Because we can have the gifts and the blessings, but there's going to be that which we lack.
Right.
And then you bring that in with a wife or with a man. And by bringing these two people together, the ancestral gifts which the world needs can then actually be realized and actually work.
So it's like a spiritual skills sharing exchange, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Because no family is perfect completely,
right.
right? And I always talk about the necessity behind spiritual diversity, okay? And that's why, you know, if you're butting heads with the woman that you're trying to bring into the family, it's, to an extent, it's a good thing. It means they're trying to bring in something that is not in the family, clearly you need it.
So then let's talk about how then partners were chosen. Is it the way it is today? What was the process of, you know, groom selecting bride back in the day?
So before, arranged marriage was a thing.
Right.
But it isn't what is doing what is happening today. Arranged marriage was not this thing of taking a 15-year-old girl and marrying her off to a 30-year-old man.
Gotcha.
No, not at all. An arranged marriage would be between two families, and then they would sit down and they would say, look, our families would do well together. We have a daughter, we have a son. How do you feel about this? But remember, they would only be speaking, Globals and Kizas would only be speaking to each other because historically we already have that relationship. So spiritually, right, we have that foundation set in place. And then, of course, people also understood that an arranged marriage does not necessarily mean that you can do or act anyhow within the marriage. And you still needed to respect and appreciate your wife. Unfortunately, now, arranged marriage is done completely differently.
If the Ndlovus and the Mkizes have had ancestrally a relationship, then there's also, ka Sesotho, I know di kgomo di buela sakeng.
Yeah.
But what about if your lineage is too close? You know, where is the line with our cultures and intermarrying and, you know, is it your cousin or not your cousin? where does culture lie within that context?
So there's three kinds of incest, if you want to call it that. Primary, secondary, and tertiary.
Oh, gosh.
Primary level incest is if you marry someone with the exact same surname as you, right? That's primary level.
That's a problem.
That's big no-no.
Okay, gotcha.
Right? Big no-no, spiritual diversity absolutely gone, right? Then there is secondary level incest, which is where you date someone who has either your mother or grandmother or anyone from the second or third generation surname.
Gotcha.
Right? So if your grandmother was Khateb and you go date a gentleman who was Khateb, that's primary level incest. Very easy to cleanse on its own. That's a simple cleansing on its own.
You mean secondary?
Secondary, right?
Yes.
Primary is a big problem. It's difficult to cleanse.
Okay, so secondary is a bit
Tertiary is if you are dating someone from the second or third generation, right? And associated clan names.
Okay.
That's what it makes it. So for instance, my mom, so for example, if you're gonna date someone who is, if my mother is Mabaso, and then I go and I date someone who's Mbulaz, which is the associated clan name, right?
That's okay.
That's tertiary level incest. So it's not necessarily okay, but it's easier to cleanse. And it's weird because you almost need either secondary or tertiary level incest for a relationship to survive because you need the spiritual history between the two families.
Yes.
But you also need to know to cleanse it. So it's a conundrum of sorts.
Yeah.
You know it's technically incorrect, but the relationships that we see that thrive always have some sort of historical predisposition behind it.
Okay.